I've reviewed a lot of movies on this channel, some that are beloved classics, some that are cult classics, and some that are solid movies but don't get the recognition they deserve, and that is the type of movie I'm talking about today, a film called Land of the Lost. Based on the TV series of the same name, it had a lot of trailers hyping it up, but when it came out in 2009, it couldn't have gone any worse. It not only got trashed by critics and audiences, it got nominated for Razzies galore and bombed big time at the box office, killing any chance of a sequel or franchise to this film. But today I want to talk about why this is not only a good film, but a film that is so much better than people give it credit for. So let's talk about why Land of the Lost is a forgotten treasure. So the story of Land of the Lost is this: down on his luck, scientist Dr. Rick Marshall gets humiliated on the Today Show when talking about his solution to an energy crisis happening in the form of time warps, which he claims there's a fuel source in another dimension that will solve the crisis completely. Everybody, of course, thinks he's crazy, and he decides to give up on his ambition for a while. After years of being depressed at his mission to prove everybody wrong has been fruitless, he is visited by another scientist who has brought proof of what Rick Marshall initially believed. His passion reignited, he enlists the help of a kooky shipowner to take them to a spot where he can use a device he created to transport to the other dimension, and after a wild river ride, they are teleported to the titular Land of the Lost, where they meet a monkey-human creature named Shaka, a reptile creature named Enoch, and a giant dinosaur who is constantly trying to eat them. But along the way, the teleportation device gets snatched by flying dinosaur, and it's up to them retrieve the device, survive all sorts of dangers, and of course make it back home. The plot of this film is very similar to a film that came out a year prior, Journey to the Center of the Earth. They both star characters who team up with a couple characters to journey to another world, and they have to find a way to get back home. Now, while they do have similar structure, they are a bit different. Journey was more of a spectacle, constantly emphasizing the 3D aspect and the grand scope. Land of the Lost is more of a comedy. It still has a very large scope, but its main priority is being funny, and while not every joke lands, they are pretty funny for the most part. The story is pretty good. Nothing special or different, but still pretty solid. The characters are all pretty good. Dr. Rick Marshall is a very likable and relatable character. He might have times that he can be a jerk and throw in the towel, but he does have moxie, and he can be incredibly funny and clever. I felt like Rick in a lot of scenarios of my life, where I had a dream and an ambitious goal, but things always seemed to go wrong, and there were a lot of times I felt like giving up, but I kept going and pursuing my dream until I got to a place where I could fulfill my dream. In part to some great people who believed in me when I didn't believe in myself and gave me confidence to be who I am today. He is probably one of the most underrated Will Ferrell characters of all time. Holly is also very likable. She is a sweetheart and shows a real passion for science, and has a pretty charming relationship with Rick. Yes, it's obvious that they're gonna get together the moment she comes, but when it comes, it is satisfying, and you do buy that they both have feelings for each other, especially since she was the only one who believed in Rick and his beliefs of other dimensions. Will is an incredibly funny and bubbly comedic relief. He has a lot of charming comedic scenes, and he forms a strong, believable friendship with Rick and Shaka. Now, he's not a perfect character, as there are times when he can be immature and not take things seriously, and can sometimes make jokes at inappropriate times. Sometimes it can be funny, but sometimes it can be frustrating. He's a pretty good character, though, and I think Danny McBride does a good job playing him. I know people thought he was pretty annoying, but I thought he was pretty cool. Shaka is kind of annoying, but he can have funny moments here and there. He doesn't speak English and instead speaks in a monkey/human language where he kinda forms words but not fully. He's an okay character, and I didn't really like him all that much when I saw this movie in theaters. Enoch is kind of a weak villain. He is a lizard creature who wants to use Rick's device to travel to our world. He starts off befriending Rick, since they both have a strong passion for science, but their motivations are vastly different. He doesn't get a lot of screen time, and in fact there's no build-up to him whatsoever. He just kinda shows up in the middle of the movie when our characters stumble upon these temple ruins in the middle of the jungle, and then these random lizard creatures pop up out of these rooms, and then he creates this doorway and leads them inside supposedly to protect them, but in reality he just wants to use Rick to get his device. We also learn that he was banished from his society for doing a bunch of bad things, but we never really dive that deep into his character or get to know him, so we don't care about this character or his motivations. He ends up falling flat, and he isn't that threatening outside of his army of lizard zombies. Plus he doesn't express any emotions, because his eyes don't move and the costume and makeup are so stilted that we can't feel for this character. And he's supposed to be the villain, the person that is supposed to be a looming presence. But he's barely in the movie, so he ends up becoming just another nuisance that our characters have to deal with. Anak is probably the most forgettable villain of all time. If the movie had introduced us to him earlier, like maybe he appears when they first enter the land of the lost, then he might have left more of an impact, and we would be intrigued to learn about this character and what he's all about. But as is, he is just another forgettable 2000s villain. The CGI and environments of the land of the lost are pretty cool. Sometimes the visuals can be a bit polarizing to look at, like the dinosaur and some of the fruits, but the desolate wasteland, like the area with the motel and the recognizable things from our world, as well as the volcano and Anik's lair, are very visually pleasing. Like I said, Journey was more of a spectacle and had a lot more immersive environments, and I will admit this movie doesn't look as good as that movie, but it is still very well done. Pretty solid overall. The soundtrack is also pretty solid. It ranges from solid to good. None of these tracks are among my favorite or anything, but they do their job well. Overall, guys, this is a really good movie. It's not a movie that I am extremely passionate about or watch a lot. It's just a really fun, enjoyable comedy that I like very much, and I don't think it deserved to bomb at the box office or get the bashing it got. I honestly don't get it. I hear a bunch of different things, like Will Ferrell's shtick was starting to get old around that time, and that this movie didn't do the original show justice, and that it modernized it too much. Now, I've never seen the original show, so I don't know how much this movie changed about the source material, but given how other adaptations have reworked beloved IPs, I think we can assume they changed quite a bit. It's kinda the same situation as The Fall Guy. It was based on a classic show, but other than the title and the main character, they don't have anything to do with each other, and maybe that alienated a large portion of moviegoers, and the trailers weren't that great. The only thing that I remember from the trailers was the Today Show scene with Matt Lauer, which I'm going to ignore. Maybe people were turned off by the blatant advertising for one of Comcast's biggest brands, and thought the entire movie was just going to be a lame cash grab, and plus the fact that it came out right after Journey to the Center of the Earth. So maybe the concept just felt redundant and uninteresting to the average moviegoer and didn't think it would be anything worth seeing. But whatever the reason, this movie is an underrated gem that I highly recommend you check out. It's not a great movie, but it is very enjoyable. It might not be a good adaptation, but it is a good movie and a forgotten treasure. Anyways, guys, what do you think? Let me know down in the comments, and I'll see you guys later.